topic for today is general and administrative expenses. So, I'm the first reporter. I'm Marie Cris Pagasita. Ang topic ko po is function involved. The typical medium to large size company would include the cost of this department in the G&A expenses category. First is chairman of the board. The chairman of the board had the board of directors provides leadership to the firm, executive and other employees, lead the charge on big picture and set the tone of the corporate culture of the company. Next is Office of the President. The President is responsible for implementing and enforcing the law written by Congress and to the end appoints the head of the federal agency including the cabinet. Next is financial organization. Financial organization an institution, public or private, that collects funds from the public or other institution and invests them in financial assets. Office of the Chief Financial Officer. Chief Financial Officer hold the top financial position in an organization. Next is Investor Relations Department. To provide information regarding a company past performance, future growth strategies, corporate policies, and to respond to corporate events that could impact share value. Next is Office of the Controller. The Controller oversees all employees involved in the accounting process, including account receivable, account payable, payroll, inventory, and compliance. Next is the Accounting Department, Tax Department. This is the Financial Planning and Control Department, Financial Information System. First is the Office of the Treasurer, responsible for a company liquidity. The Treasurer must monitor current and projected cash flow and special funding needs and use this information to correctly invest excess fund, as well as to be prepared for additional borrowing and capital raises. Next is Cash Administration Risk Management. Risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, and controlling threats to an organization, capital, and earning. Next is the Retirement Plan Investment. Binubuo siya ng Office of the Chief Internal Auditor, Financial Auditing. Internal audit is an independent, objective, assurance, and consulting function established to examine, evaluate, and improve the effectiveness of internal control, risk management, and governance system and processes of an organization. Next is the System Auditing Special Review. Binubuo siya ng Legal Department. The Legal Department is typically responsible for all legal and legal-related external matter, such as litigation, investigation, compliance, merger, and acquisition. Office of the Vice President. Legal Office of the Corporate Secretary Litigation. The Vice President of a company is usually the second or third in command and support the President by overseeing internal operation and stepping in when the President is unavailable. Next is the corporate offices for the direction and control of this major function. First is the manufacturing. The manufacturing function is primarily responsible for implementing and operating the production system in order to produce the product. Manufacturing may also include purchase, distribution, and installation, as well as the physical manufacture of the component. Next is the Research and Development. The role of the Research and Development Department is to keep a business competitive by providing insight into the market and developing new services, product, or improving existing ones accordingly. Next is Human Resources. It's the division of a business responsible for finding, screening, recruiting, and training job applicant. HR also administer employee benefit program. Next is the management information system. Is a computer system consisting of hardware and software that serve as the backbone of an organization operation. An MIS gather data from multiple online systems, analyze the information and report data to aid in management decision making. Next is a public relation officer. Is a specialized in building and maintaining the positive image of the company, organization or client, public relation officer, and the first contact for organization seeking to reach out in an informed way. Last is strategic planning. Will develop and direct the strategic and long-range goal of the organization, including proposal to enter new market, to expand existing market presence. To the extent that the purpose of this department or organization units have to do with overall policy determination, planning, direction, and control, they probably will be classified as GNA in the annual report to shareholder. All expenses as the division of subsidiary level might or might not be so classified. Although the methods of planning and control will be similar to those for the corporate activity. Again, I'm Marie Cris Pagasita. The topic is the controlling cost. Accounting costs also be controlled through standard of performance and cost. This standard can be applied to many office functions just as they have been applied to manufacturing and sales function. They are not applicable to all accounting activities and do not give the same degree of accuracy as in the factor. But in many offices, the possible cost saving for center clerical activities are sufficient to justify the effort of establishing the standard. The application of setting standard to the measurement of clerical work is a 6-step process. First is the preliminary observation and analysis. This step is the fundamental in securing the necessary overall understanding of the problem in selecting those areas of activity that may lend themselves to standardization, so it assists in eliminating any obvious weakness in routine. Second is the selection of function on which standards are to be set. Standards should be set only on those activities sufficient in volume to justify standard. Third is the determination of the unit of work. A unit must be selected in which the standard may be expressed. These units will depend on the degree of specialization and the volume of work. Number 4 is the determination of the best method in setting of the standard. Time and motion studies can be applied to office work, with sufficient allowance being given for fatigue and personal needs. Number 5 is testing of the standard. After the standard has been set, it should be tested to see that it is practical. Lastly is the final application. Application involves using the standard and preparing simple report that the supervisor and the individual workers can see. It also requires a full explanation to the employee. That's all. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Mona Lisa Marigo and let us proceed to the next topic, which is accounting for allocating administrative expenses. So first, what is administrative expenses? It is the expenses that organization incurs. This is not directly related to a specific core function such as manufacturing, production, or sales. These overhead expenses are related to the organization as a whole, as opposed to individual departments or business units. The controller is responsible for developing and maintaining an accounting system that serves, among other, these purposes. First is permits the report of expenses for external purposes in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Second is allow the accumulate of cost by natural category to facilitate planning and control. The third is accumulate costs on a responsibility basis so that specific individual may be assigned to responsibility for planning and control. of the cost. And the fourth is where appropriate permits the allocation of expenses on some acceptable basis, such as benefits received to cost objective, which might include division or cost centers or products that use the service. Gives way to internal control concern. Methods of allocation and when costs should be allocated are of special concern in planning and control of assets. A basic tenet for responsibility accounting is that expenses should not be allocated to department unless the supervisor can exercise control over such costs. If such control is present, then these allocation methods are possible. Allocate costs based on the amount of resource consumed by the cost center received by the service. For example, if a division uses a financial analysis time to evaluate a prospective acquisition, then the analysis time should be charged to the applicable division. Allocate costs using a common activity base, but only if the direct charge method is not feasible. Costs can be charged based on many activities bases, such as sales, asset, employed, payroll, the number of new hires, square feet used, and the number of purchase order issued. It is desirable to have a number of cost pools that are allocated using a number of different activity bases as long as costing accuracy is materially improved by expending the extra effort of record keeping. Yung internal control concern, ito yung mga paraan ng paglalaan at kung kailan dapat ilaan ng mga gastos. Ang isang pangunahing prinsipyo sa responsibility accounting ay yung mga gastos ay hindi dapat ilaan sa isang department maliban kung supervisor ay maaaring gumamit ng control sa mga gastos. Sa allocate cost naman, ito yung mga paglalaan ng mga gastos batay sa halaga ng pagkukuha ng nakonsumo ng cost center na tumatanggap ng service. Example, kung ang isang service ay gumagamit ng isang oras ng isang financial analysis para tingnan yung isang prospective ng pagkuha. Kaya naman yung oras ng analysis ay dapat singilin sa naangkop na halaga. Next is allocate variance between standard and actual cost to the cost center using the same allocation bases that were used for the initial allocation. The variance can be allocated in proportion to the cost allocated previously in standard rates. Allocate should not be performed based on the ability to bear the cost. Example, the most profitable division is charged with most of the expenses. Since exercise charge to profitable division can hinder through financial condition and have a counterproduction effect on management behavior. If supervisors have no control over the costs that are allocated to them, the allocation costs should not be separate from the revenues and costs for which they are responsible, especially if the profitable goals and bonuses are involved. Otherwise, managers will have no incentive to achieve their target goals when imposed allocated cost cuts into their targets.
Responsibility accounting. Responsibility accounting is a system in which we break up the organization into subunits that is called responsibility center. There are different types of responsibility center. First is cost center, revenue center, profit center, and also the investment center. Each revenue or cost is held to be the responsibility of someone within this organization. For example, you'll break the company down and you'd say, okay, we've got an accounting department, we got a marketing department, and so on. And then the marketing department will be the one who is responsible for all the marketing costs, then every line item, for example, in your budgeted income statement. So every line item and every type of revenue and every type of cost is responsibility of some person. So, for example, the cost of the accounting department in any expenses related to accounting for your company, it could be traced back to the manager of this accounting department. So if you have a grocery store, their corporate office has a department. If there's any issue about when you say the accounting costs are getting out of control, you would go and speak to the person who is manager of this accounting department, because they are the head of that responsibility center. So let me give you another example with a company that everyone knows. So Apple, it is a very popular and large company. They are operate in multiple countries around the world. So let's say Apple uses responsibility accounting in terms of breaking up their organization into different subunits. So if you would think about, you could break them up by geographic region. So you could say there's an Apple China division, here's Apple US division, and so on. And you can have different countries in which they operate. And you could break out into different components, but within the US division, you could have, or maybe they have their own accounting department that is before the US division, that handles all accounting related to the US division, that is responsible. They have their own legal department, and they have that is specific to the US division. So if we could take the accounting department as an exemption, so let's go back to this US and China and so on. This could be responsibility center, where you can say that, let's say, measured the profitability of the country. So we'd have our profit for the Apple and the US operation. Apple China, what's their profit? And this would be profit center. And then also, if you have their responsibility to make their own investment, we can call it is an investment center. But let's just stick with this profit. So we can say it, if Apple US is losing money, there's someone we need to speak to that responsible for Apple US division. And then we would now talk to them about what's going on with the head of the president of Apple US division. And then if we drill down, we could say that we've got this even smaller subunit, and so the accounting department or legal department, and we could say if the costs seem to be spiraling out of control of this legal department, so we could go speak to the head attorney or whoever is in charge of this legal department. There's always a person that is responsible for that. We hold every single type of revenue and cost, and also there's somebody who's responsible, so that, for example, what cost, that the cost don't just get out of control. And if there's somebody responsible, if you see the costs are going up and up every time, we could go speak with someone, and let's say this is the person responsible for what we can do to manage the cost, that they don't continue on this upward trajectory. So the primary objective of this accounting is to support all the planning, costing, and responsibility center of the company. Responsibility accounting is also important for the following reasons, like it establishes a sort of system of cost control. It could make the staff cost conscious, and also it is possible to compare that the actual performance with the set standard.